Most of the leaders that we work with would say, on average, that they have a psychologically safe team. And moreover, they'd say that they're able to facilitate and foster psychological safety. Now, that belief they hold very tight and dear until reality starts to clash with what they believe. And it looks like there might be silence or disengagement or reports of low morale, or even if there's a pulse survey or a culture assessment, people might report not feeling safe to innovate, to make mistakes, or to share, or that they don't feel heard. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you a checklist that we use with our clients to help them gauge if they're psychologically safe leaders. I'm Krista Wilson, and for the last 17 years through my company, Wilson & Associates Coaching and Consulting, I have helped organizations build high trust, people first, thriving team and workplace cultures. And one of the ingredients of a thriving, just great company culture is psychological safety. And in fact, we created a tool called the Build a Great Company Culture Guide. And it's based on the research that we've done, and we've understand that a thriving workplace culture, a company that people love to work for, there's 12 elements. And one of those elements is psychological safety. If you haven't read the guide, go ahead and download it. The link's in the video description. It's also on the profile. But go ahead and get that free guide and start to examine which of the 12 levers that you can start to pull today to build a great company culture. So as I said, most people believe that they're able to facilitate psychological safety, meaning that people feel that they can generally participate and share and exist on their team without retribution or harm. And that's the kind of culture that we all want. And I want to say this too. I don't think that most managers are out here rogue trying to do harm. The fact is that things happen under our leadership, and it's because we don't have certain controls or checks or supports and structures in place. And so in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about what that checklist for you should include if you want to build psychologically safe cultures. And I'm going to refer to my actual checklist that we use with clients. So let's go ahead and dig in, because by the end of this video, I want you to know exactly which habits create psychologically safe teams and what your role in that is. Inviting real input. Like, actually, people should feel heard and supported. There was research that came out years ago from the Surgeon General of the United States talking about workplace well-being. And one of the things that stood out for me is in addition to, physical safety, like with OSHA, things like that, one of the key components of feeling safe and well and generally happy at work is that your voice matters. And that's something so primal and so basic. We know that psychologically safe leaders, they invite people to share their voice, even if it's a contrarian idea that doesn't go along with the grain. And let me say this too, because I've worked with some incredible leaders. They might be watching this video now, and they will share with me and with others that they have an open door policy, meaning that people are invited to come and share their ideas. And they say that because they want to illustrate that there's no hierarchy in their mind. And yet, during team meetings, ones that I have witnessed, that leader almost unconsciously over-participates. They talk in ways that make it feel like their way is the only way. So here's your first checklist. Do you consistently ask for people's thinking, their ideas? Do you invite them to share their questions and their concerns openly? If you do, that's amazing. That's you demonstrating that you want honesty, that you want full participation, even if the ideas don't go along with yours. Now, if you answered no, again, this is a judgment-free zone. But what I want to invite you to think about is, how can you use curiosity, which is the opposite of assumptions and judgment? How can you use curiosity? And what I love as a facilitator is open-ended questions that aren't answered with a yes or a no, but they invite people to share a response to a question. That's why it's called an open question, because it opens people up to share versus closing them off with a simple yes or no. I'll tell you, something that I love in terms of an open question that facilitates curiosity are things like, what am I missing? Or what concerns do y'all have about this policy or this direction? Or has anyone thought of a different way to do this? And if so, can you share it with the group? What is your alternative idea or proposal? So those are some ways to facilitate that open question. Now, I know that I worked on the team once and people just agreed. And I thought, there's no way that everybody agrees with this item on the agenda. Not that there was anything wrong with the item on the agenda. It's just that in a healthy, high-functioning team, you're going to have disagreement. Now, I don't mean that means fighting and table flipping. What I mean is that there are going to be differences of opinion because there's different kinds of people at the table. So if you notice that in your team meetings, there's just rampant agreement, there's no disagreement, there's no contrary opinions, I'm here to tell you, most likely it's not that your team is best friends. There is an opportunity to develop psychological safety so people feel that it's safe to be vulnerable and to be contrarian. Here's your second checklist item to see if you're a psychologically safe leader. Are you able to respond when people make mistakes? Are you able to respond in a way that is punitive or that's about punishment? Or do you respond in ways that invite people to share how they got to that outcome? Whether they made a mistake, they didn't understand it, but that you're inviting them to share their thinking and their approach. How you respond to them making a mistake will dictate if they speak up in future meetings, even if it's not related to an assignment. So here's your checklist moment. Do you respond with curiosity or with judgment? Now, I always tell my clients, you cannot concurrently hold a point of curiosity and a point of judgment. So when someone makes a mistake and they share that mistake with you or you find it out, do you respond with curiosity or judgment? If you respond with curiosity, that's great. It means that you are signaling that this is an opportunity, this is a team where we learn. And when we learn and innovate, mistakes are just par for the course. Now, again, no judgment. But if you notice that on balance, when your team members make a mistake, you lean into already kind of creating a backstory for why they made the mistake. Here's what I want to invite you to do instead. If your team member makes a mistake, here's what you could say. I was expecting a different outcome, but I would love it for you to walk me through how you got to this outcome, how you got to this project, how you made that decision. Like, walk me through it so I can understand your thought process. Because I'll also tell you this, sometimes as leaders, we already have in our mind how something was supposed to go, the steps someone should have taken, the process that they should have used. And people can find their own path to get to an outcome. And sometimes with that innovation, there will be a mistake made, but that happens with all innovation. So leading with curiosity shows your employee that you want to understand their work style, how they think, and that that's valuable, and that there could be some learning that comes from the mistake that was made too. I want you to pause and think about those two things on the checklist. And I want you to tell me this. What's one leadership habit that you want to strengthen over the next month? Could be how you listen. It could be how you create space for others to participate. But think about this one leadership habit that you want to practice that you think will help grow trust and psychological safety. And then I want you to put it in the comment below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you have tried that you know has worked. And if you have a question for me, put that in the comments too. I would love to answer. I love questions. It gives me content for future videos. Okay, back to the checklist. We're 2 down, we're 2 to go. The third thing I want you to be thinking about in terms of how you build psychological safety is how you acknowledge and you manage uncertainty. So earlier this year, I facilitated a retreat for a local government. There have been a number of changes within the department. There have been federal funding changes, there have been staff changes, and potentially their organization would merge with another one. So you have this idea of acquisitions and if people are going to lose their jobs. So much uncertainty and nothing was fully baked. Nothing was fully decided. There was no memo explaining the step-by-step rollout of these changes. There was just a lot of uncertainty. And when you're a leader who was not responsible for the decision, it can give you some uneasiness too, in the same way that your employees might have that uneasiness too. One of the ways that we inadvertently harm psychological safety is that as the leader, we think we have to have all the answers. And I want to give you this permission right now. So turn the volume up. As a leader, your job is to not have all the answers, and it's not to solve all the problems. Your role is to provide clarity. Here's where we are. Here's what we know. And yeah, here's what we don't know. And as soon as I have more information that feels ready to share, I will share that with you. That's stability. That's being a solid foundation at a time when everything else feels rocky. So here's your checklist question. Do you name uncertainty when it shows up on your team or in your organization? If you do, it gives people their permission to feel like they can help brainstorm with you and find solutions with you. And if you notice that in moments of uncertainty, you feel like you have to have all the answers and you have to have the full game plan that's fully baked, I want to give you the invitation to relax that part and to offer some kind of framing like this. We're still trying to figure out these pieces. And here's what I do know. And I want to invite you to share whatever questions you have whenever you have them, and I'll work to get an answer. It may take some time, but I'm committed to getting the information to the team. This idea of being able to navigate uncertainty is a huge component of psychologically safe teams, which is essentially that we're a learning organization. Because, and I've said this before, when you're learning, you're going to make a mistake. Imagine the first time that you learned to ride a bike. If you were anything like me, as soon as you were on that bike, even with training wheels, that bike was tipsy and turvy. It wasn't as stable. Maybe you fell. And I know for sure when those training wheels came off, there was a fall or 2 or 5 or 10. Again, I'll speak for myself. The point is that when you're learning anything for the first time, you're not going to be perfect at it. You're going to make mistakes, but making the mistakes is how you learn what to do differently the next time. And that is a core component of both a learning organization and an organization where psychological safety is flourishing. So take this tip from me. You don't have to be perfect or have all the answers. You just need to be that stable rock that people can count on to keep it real and to keep it full of support. Now, here's the fourth part of this checklist as you think about, are you a psychologically safe leader? Now, this is one of my favorite things to invite a team to do because it requires very little resources for the payoff that you get as a leader. And the way that you can build psychological safety is by creating team culture and conflict and communication norms. So let me dig into that. First of all, does your team have team norms? A team norm is essentially what any community organizer will tell you that they've used. It's a version of a community agreement. How do we speak to each other? How do we treat each other? And what's expected here? Because when we all have the same game plan, we all have the same rules, it makes it easy to be compliant, to follow the rules. And it makes it easier to hold others accountable, not in a punitive way, but in a care-based way. Hold them accountable when they fall out of alignment with the way that we said we want our team's culture to feel. So here's your checklist question. Does your team have agreements in place that shape how you communicate and how you disagree? And if you have those agreements, is everyone aware of them and where they exist? Do you regularly engage with them in your meetings? If your answer was yes, congratulations. That kind of structure helps build psychologically safe teams. I feel safer knowing what's expected of me. I feel safer knowing that if somebody acts out of pocket, they're rude or disrespectful, that you all see it and that you're going to hold that person accountable because we all have been trained in the same, let's call it the owner's manual of our team, right? We own the culture of this team. And if you're sitting here and you think, well, we don't really have agreements, like they're not written down. I'm not sure if they're full agreements or they're kind of just the way things are, then it's not codified. So your psychologically safe leader checklist will be to build these conflict and communication agreements or norms. And because you don't have to have all the answers, co-creating them with your team is a great way to show that their voice matters, that there's accountability and care rooted at the core of the team. And another norm that most teams don't have, I call this their conflict resiliency plan. They don't have an agreement like this. When a harm happens, we work to repair it and quickly. That lets people know if something does happen, there will be action. And if people know that one, harm is not tolerated, and that if a harm does happen, it will be repaired quickly, that facilitates trust, it facilitates well-being, it facilitates team cohesion and trust, and of course, psychological safety. So if you want to build psychological safety and build a strong team culture, don't forget The Build a Great Company Culture Guide is free, and I teach you both the psychological safety lever to pull, that essential element of great culture, but I also will show you 11 other elements. And that means not doing all 12 at once, but figuring out what's that one lever that you can start to pull as a leader today to build a thriving team and ultimately workplace culture. If this video resonated for you, I would love for you to check out the other videos I have in the series. Also, make sure that you hit like and you subscribe to the channel, and you can get updated for the videos that we drop on Wednesday.